dude. I was laughing so hard. And I can't even remember if the guy thought it was funny or not.
Yeah.
I just remember laughing and
life
thinking.
in your hands with Italians.
Yeah, I mean, it was so funny. And then the thing I want to add to this is you make that thing seem so real. And you really think it's another person up there. When we were at the Nasty Show in Montreal, I took pictures of you doing this, and I kept them for myself.
Yeah.
But I took pictures of you disassembling George and putting him into the box.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that Twilight Zone where the guy's got the puppet and it keeps talking to him from the crate. You know what I
Cliff
mean?
Robertson.
Yeah.
I saw that dummy at Copperfield's Museum in Vegas. He has that dummy.
No shit.
Yeah.
Is it as creepy looking in real life?
Yeah, it hasn't even been painted since they shot this Twilight Zone, and his suitcase was there and everything. I was fascinated.
Wow, but it was just so surreal. Like you just see this thing like now it doesn't have life anymore, and you're taking
he
it
dominates
apart.
me. It's like kind of a half a person. I'm kind of there's nothing to me, and George is the dominant personality.
Well, I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
Well, what I love, one of the things I see you do a lot on stage is I love that George is it's like your inner voice, like your insecurities are coming out through him. And the the figure will say to you, it'll say to you in the middle of your set, what are you, fucking nervous, you fucking loser? You know what I mean? And it says shit like that, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man. Like,
Is George like that's I like that. Is George like when I'm on stage, when Joe's on stage, and I'm like, oh my God, this crowd sucks. But like with you, George gets to look at you and go, this crowd sucks.
Yeah, it's kind of like not being alone up there, which is
but
kind
then
of
you
sick.
get to be on the side of the crowd and go, come on, these are nice people.
Yeah.
It's like this crazy dichotomy you create. Where the dummy will tell you, like, do you see why aren't the black people laughing? They stink. And you'd be like, why do you got to pick on them, George?
Al Lewis told me that I wasn't talking enough on stage. Grandpa Munster, he goes, why are you even up there? He goes, the dummy's doing like a monologue. There's got to be some conflict. The audience wants to hear from you. So I thought about that because it was Grandpa Munster. It wasn't just some guy. So then, I do like the Mike Stivic. George is Archie, and I'm Mike Stivic. I try and take the voice of reason, you know? There's got to be a conflict there, you know?
I saw George disassembled when you were a guest on Action, and your episode never aired.
Yeah. And you warned me about that. I remember you told me up front.
And for years, you and I had pseudo-communication, because it was before you could just text and stuff. And I felt so bad because you would ask me for the tapes, and I had I wasn't a producer. Right. I was like a hired actor on a show.
Jim Vallely was producing,
And then you would, I think on your end, it was, well, why can't Jay just get me these tapes? And on my end, I'm like, I don't have the tapes. Yeah, I would like them for myself because I thought I was pretty good.
I got to spend a day with Buddy Hackett, which was awesome. I got some great photos and got to ask him about Mad Mad World. That was enough. But I didn't realize when a show ends, everything is dismantled and people go their own way. It's not like that. There's no rear view mirror stuff sitting there, you know.
And what's weird is when I saw the dummy or the figure, you had like a trailer and it said Otto and George, and then awesome. He almost looked when he was disassembled. There's a lot of I guess padding or wraps and stuff, and he almost was dressed like a jockey.
Yeah.
There was I have this weird memory. Maybe I'm wrong, and I created this in my head, but there was like red and green tape or some kind of wrap, and he got disassembled. And Joe's right. It is a little alarming because I've laughed so hard at the two of you together to just see him as an inanimate object. It's like, oh, no. I need you to look at me and make fun of me when I come up in here.
Yeah, like he's going to move. It was weird. When I was in Copperfield's museum, he has one of my Georges on display there, and he's got all these Jerry Mahoney's and Charlie McCarthy's, and I was the only one still alive in this museum. All the other guys were dead, and I go, wow, one day I'll be dead, and my fucking puppet's going to be sitting there with his eyes open in the Nevada desert in some, fucking magic museum. He was really great, though. He was tired, but he took me there like 2 o'clock in the morning and showed me the whole tour and, told me all about this Houdini. He owns everything. He's got amazing shit down there.
We've had a lot of stars on Action. We had a lot of stars. It was Sandra Bullock, Tony Hawk, Keanu Reeves was in the pilot. I mean, there was a lot of massive stars, A+ stars. And I will say this: I think it was Full Frontal Comedy on Showtime.
Yeah.
That tape, when we got wind. Well, I kind of pushed. I wanted you in that scene in the jail cell with Buddy Hackett. that tape of you and George made its way around the Culver City Studios lot.
It did?
And by the time, first of all, Buddy Hackett said he was weeping in my trailer and said that's the funniest 8 minutes I've ever seen in my life.
That's some compliment
but he could,
from him.
But he could barely say it.
That was the funniest. Oh my God.
And but I will say this to the listeners: for Otto and George on stage, this is a show that Ice Cube, every star in the world, was on this show in 8 episodes.
Yeah.
There were 5 times more people to watch George and you.
Wow.
Than there were for Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves. You became like this event, like a band that gets hot.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do they sell O2 Arena? Right. What?
It's not cool to be starstruck in LA, right? It's if you react to a star, you like lame, right? Isn't that the thing in LA?
Yeah, especially on a set, you want to just be like, hey, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're all working on the same thing. But for you, everyone lost their minds starstruck because you were the anomaly. Like I think actors and production people, they're not used to. This is what I said to Patrice. You brought up Patrice earlier. Patrice didn't like the way people were looking at him on The Office.
Oh.
And I was like, but don't you understand, when they look at you, they wish they were you, because when you leave, you get to go do your own stuff on stage. Like, you're the anomaly. You're not some douche actor who's like, nah, I'm just going to go make s'mores with my, indoor fireplace. I got nothing. But like, you get to like then go to the improv and then people adore you again.
Yeah.
And that's all anyone ever wants is attention. That's why we're in show business. But everybody, the starstruck thing just went out the window. And I don't know if you remember this.
It did seem like there were a lot of people standing around. I thought that's what it took to make a show.
No, it's literally like a camera op, a guy to push the dolly, and it was just you and Buddy Hackett.
I remember the director got pissed at me because I had to cry in a scene with George, and I was having like the greatest day of my life hanging out with Buddy Hackett and having a trailer. And then he got like mad. It's like, this guy can't act. I go, yeah, I'm a nightclub comic. You're not getting Alec Guinness here. And then they sprayed this fucking menthol shit in my eyes to make me tear up, like an empty tube with menthol. And I had to hold my eyeballs so my glasses would fucking
feeding him wasabi.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, rub wasabi on my eyelids.
It gets worse. Later in the day,
I think the director thought I was a jerk.
You were out of the scene later in the day. They went from you not crying, you getting yelled at by the director. He was a dick.
Yeah.
Let's just call it out.
Okay.
He was a dick. It went from you being told, like, I kind of need you to cry. And you're like, and I can't imagine. It's got to be intimidating and embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I'm from where I live. I live in Jersey, and all of a sudden I'm in Hollywood. And I'm like, oh, you feel like a jerk. Like, everyone listening, do me a favor. Tell everyone at work today at 3:00, come to my desk. I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
But tell everyone, like, for real. And then when everyone's at your desk,
Right.
just sit with them and cry and see if you feel like an asshole.
Yeah. I remember the
And there's no cameras rolling.
That's hard to do. I can't do that. Can you cry?
I can make you cry in about 2 seconds.
Oh, why would you? Why would you?
I
Why would
wouldn't.
you? Can you make yourself cry though in a scene?
You know when I cry? Off camera. When I'm in the scene when I'm supposed to cry for the other person, I bawl my eyes out.
Oh.
And then when the camera's on me, it's so alarming. It's right in front of your face that you just look like a jerk trying to cry.
It's not easy acting. It's a weird thing, I mean, you get a lot of takes, which is cool.
The director descended from you. He descended on you, and then it got worse and worse. He got mad at you for not crying.
Yeah.
And I remember you were very nice. I was like, oh my God, Otto's going to destroy the guy. And that's when I realized the true dichotomy between man and figure. Like, no, Otto's like this sweet guy.
Yeah.
And George would slam the shit out of him.
Yeah.
But Otto went, okay, I'll do my best. Whatever you said to the guy. And then they blew menthol in your eyes.
Yeah.
And then they're just showing you Rich Voss's act, just anything to try to get you to weep. And then it got to the point later in the day where it was only the puppet and Buddy Hackett.
Yeah.
And you were behind the bed, on the ground under the bed with just your arm. They got, somehow with the puppet act, they cut out the human.
Yeah.
But you can't work the puppet without the human. So poor Otto is laying under a jail cell bed, and they got like a blanket down so you don't see his feet.
Yeah.
And his arm is against the wall working George. So it degenerates. It's ridiculous.
What was the scene now?
Buddy Hackett fills a fake prescription for me. He goes, I got to get my hot medicine, Petey.
Yeah.
I got to rid me of my hot. And I go, will you pick me up some Percocet and Valium? He goes, well, this just says hot medicine. And I grab it out of his hand and I go, and Percocet and Valium. There you go. Fill it. And I pat him and then he goes to fill it. And then cut to, he's in jail. and he's sitting next to George. But all day it's Otto and George.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And then
I'm
Otto...
a drunk that's sleeping in the cell, and George is like a separate guy arrested for it.
That's right. They made you just asleep. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I oversold it.
Yeah.
They just made you a passed out drunk next to the dummy and quickly sort of like made the camera like, here's everyone that's in the holding tank, and now we're just going to focus on these two over here. Like there's like it's not a ventriloquist act. So
That's
it's even,
hilarious.
I guess, is the highest compliment of how much.
I remember the scene ends with George hanging from Buddy Hackett's belt, and then I go, why did you do this to George? And he goes, I go, who else in this cell who has a size 64 waist? And Buddy Hackett goes, could we change that to 44 waist? I feel fat when you say that. I remember that.
I remember the puppet. The dummy hung himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just Otto is asleep on the prison bed. I thought you were under it, like they hid you entirely.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
No, I remember I shaved for the shoot, and then they put a beard on me because I was supposed to be in jail overnight. So they put a beard on me with this thing.
Yeah, like all of a sudden you're just this hirsute guy that you're like the wolf man.
It was
so
a nice
funny.
set, though. That jail looked real. It was cool.
They did a good job.
Yeah.
So he's asleep, and the puppet's working by himself, and it never aired.
Yeah. It
And
would've
we
been
got to
good.
figure out a way. Like, if you're on Twitter, at Otto and George, at Jay Mohr, I don't know if you get in touch with Fox.
Were you pretty close to Buddy Hackett, or
He was like a father to me.
He was, yeah?
Yeah.
That's great.
You know what it is? I met him after I knew everything.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a kung fu story.
Right.
Like I'm a black belt, and then I meet the master, and he's like, "When do you take that black belt off and start over?" And he just taught me like,
Why do you go to the microphone when you go to stay on stage?
Oh.
and I go, "Because that's where everybody goes."
Right. Don't be like everybody. Walk in front of the mic, say hi to a guy in the first row, look in the back and wave. You can't see nobody. They don't know that.
Oh.
They're like, oh my God, he's waving to us now, you know? And then there's a balcony, you point to one guy because he paid for parking. You know, he had a rough day.
Wow.
You know, and then you go behind the microphone and they all come behind the microphone with you, JJ.
Oh.
Then you roll together.
I've never walked behind a mic since.
Wow.
But it is kind of weird at like governors in Levittown to walk in front of the mic
Yeah, 2-inch
with
stage.
your crotch right in front of
Yeah.
some Guido in the front row.
He told me that the Music Man was physically the hardest, because I was asking him about, I wouldn't leave him alone about Mad Mad World. I just kept fucking obsessing over that one movie. And then he said Music Man was the hardest thing to film. He had to march down the street and, you know, California heat and fucking fat and all. But
That was written by
Yeah.
Meredith Wilson. And it was hard for me, Otto, because I got a 64-inch waist. But in the further discussion, we'll say 44.
And I said, tell me something about Mad Mad World that nobody else knows. And he said Mickey Rooney had lost a wife in an OJ type situation. One of his wives got murdered by like a tennis instructor, killed his ex-wife or something. And he goes, Mickey Rooney came over to his house and said, I want to get drunk. And he wasn't a drinker. So he goes, all right. He goes, I can't do them as well as you, Jay. And he goes, what are you drinking? He goes, I'll have a Bailey's. And Buddy, I goes, well, I'm going to drink scotch. I'll get drunk and you'll get diabetes.
I saw Mickey Rooney at Hackett's funeral, okay? This is one of the most surreal moments of my life. Hackett's funeral, I think it was Forest Lawn, I don't remember what it was, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mickey Rooney comes in with like I think he's got like his wife / nurse.
Oh.
Like it's this young shiksa he's rolling with now,
Right.
you know? And she's like young for him, which is like 60, because
Yeah.
he's like 90. And she's holding his arms, walking to where they sit at the funeral.
Right.
Outdoors. It's blazing ass hot. It's like 100 degrees. It's
Wow.
awful. And I'm like, this is not a place for a guy that old. And
Yeah.
he's a completely invalid, right?
Yeah.
Like he's doing like the Dorf walk
Wow.
with his little feet. Like he can barely move.
Wow.
And then they just decide it's time to go. And halfway through the funeral, they stand up, Mickey Rooney and his like handler woman, and he like kind of brushes her off, like get the hell away from me, like it like kind of mean.
Yeah.
And then you saw like the evolution of man, like a little crippled old man walk towards the casket, and as he came down the aisle, he got super straight up, like at attention almost.
Wow.
And the last like 20 feet, he walked like a fucking man,
Well,
completely with it. And he walked right up to the casket and went, mwah, and blew it a kiss and a big salute like he was in the army. And the girl walked towards him and he waved her off like, get the hell away from me. And he walked down the steps by himself like he was 30 years old.
Wow.
And then when they got to the car, he just went, beep,
Jeez.
but he knew like the greatest showbiz moment of his life at that. George gets to look at you and go, "This crowd sucks."
Yeah, it's kind of like not being alone up there, which is
but
kind
then
of
you
sick.
get to be on the side of the crowd and go, "Come on, these are nice people."
Yeah.
It's like this crazy dichotomy you create. Where
Well,
the dummy will tell you like, "You see why aren't the black people laughing? They stink." And you'd be like, "Why do you got to pick on them,
Yeah,
George?"
Al Lewis told me that I wasn't talking enough on stage.
Dude, I was laughing so hard, and I can't even remember if the guy thought it was funny or not.
Yeah,
I just remember laughing and
life in your
thinking,
hands with Italians.
yeah, I mean, it was so funny. And then the thing I want to add to this is you make that thing seem so real, and you really think it's another person up there. When we were at the Nasty Show in Montreal, I took pictures of you doing this, and I kept them for myself.
Yeah.
But I took pictures of you disassembling George and putting him into the box.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that Twilight Zone where the guy's got the puppet and it keeps talking to him from the crate. You know what I
Cliff
mean?
Robertson.
Yeah.
I saw that dummy at Copperfield's Museum in Vegas. He has that dummy.
No shit.
Yeah.
Is it as creepy looking in real
Oh,
life?
yeah. It hasn't even been painted since they shot this Twilight Zone, and his suitcase was there and everything. I
Wow.
was fascinated.
Wow. But it was
Yeah.
it was just so surreal. Like you just see this thing like now it doesn't have life anymore and you're taking
Yeah, he
it apart.
dominates me. I'm it's like kind of a half a person. I'm kind of there's nothing to me, and George is the dominant personality.
Well, I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
Well, what I love, one of the things I see you do a lot on stage is I love that George is it's like your inner voice, like your insecurities are coming out through him, and the the figure will say to you, it'll say to you in the middle of your set, "What are you fucking nervous, you fucking loser?" You know what I mean? And it says shit like that, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man, like.
Is George like that's I like that. Is George like when I'm on stage, when Joe's on stage, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this crowd sucks." But like with you,